Don in London, hello. It's November 25th. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour, or both. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive towards people, places, things, collecting, and personally trying to be perfect, and never so. Indeed, I don't know that I was striving for perfection. I was probably striving for an image that you would find acceptable and like more, always dreaming of the next right thing, or trying to work out how to be happy. So a lot of elaborate thinking went into how to be happy. If I did this, I'll be happy. If I did that, I'll be happy. These days I've realised, if I know how I'm feeling on a daily basis, how am I feeling, why, what can I do? If I understand my mood, then I have a better chance of living in the moment of now, which is living in the moment of reality, as life is, on life's terms. So I'm very grateful. It took me a long time to find out how to be simply me, an ordinary person living an ordinary life. And what I've found is that ordinary is extraordinary. So I share experience, strength and hope of how to live, or how I am living at the moment, in the moment, as best I can. And the best way for me to do that is to be sober. And what helps me retain my sobriety is family, community. But when it comes to actual sobriety, it's the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I share a little bit about what it is, issues which come from this book, Daily Reflections, which is an AA literature book, and anything else that seems to be pertinent at the time. And I was reflecting this morning. It was very late, and sleep was evading me, so I take the Dale Carnegie view of what to do if you can't sleep. Get up and do something useful, or ask yourself some interesting questions like, why am I happy? And I was in a very good mood last night, and a lot of it was to do with being able to go to fellowship meetings. I went to one last night which was spectacularly good for me. Well, most of them are actually. They just help me see that I'm an ordinary person making progress one day at a time. So although insomnia was with me, which is part of the conditions I have, it doesn't bother me. I just live with the fact that insomnia happens. So, fellowship. What is AA? I don't speak for it, never can, never will, never want to. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak where they will about their recovery. So here is the AA preamble on this little card, which you can't see too well. And it says what AA is. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that was copyrighted in 1947, so 53 plus 10, that's 63 years ago. And not much has changed in terms of the way the programme works. 12 steps for an individual to be open, honest and willing to experience life as it is, and 12 traditions which hold the fellowship together in unity, service and recovery. And those 12 traditions and 12 steps are encompassed in this book here, Daily Reflections. Step 11 is all about prayer and meditation, and tradition 11 is about anonymity. And I'll read out what the short version of the tradition is from this card. And it says here, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio and film. I wasn't anonymous as such. So I always wondered what was behind the tradition of anonymity at the level of press, radio and films. And the answer is not to provide other people with erroneous information about what the fellowship is or isn't. So this is why I always share that preamble from the little card, so you know what it is. And what is the difference between attraction versus promotion? And over the years I've come to the conclusion that attraction is what you see is what you get. So if you like the idea of sobriety and you see people in sobriety making it work one day at a time, that's attraction. So you're attracted to the idea of how to get sober. But if it's promotion, somebody sits somewhere and says, if you do it this way, it'll work for you, or we can fix you. And the answer is we can't. What you see is what you get. So it's an example of how life can work in sobriety. And by going to meetings, we get to see people who are either sober one day or many days, and we find out their wisdom on a daily basis. All sounds very simple, but we humans can make it very complicated, and we do like to shout and maybe broadcast from the rooftops what's important. So for me, what's important is what you see is what you get, and you're not fixed. There's no fixing in AA. That is what got us to AA. For November 25th, in the Daily Reflections, it says a powerful tradition, that's Tradition 11. In the years before the publication of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, we had no name. By a narrow majority, the verdict was for naming our book The Way Out. One of our early lone members found exactly 12 books already entitled The Way Out, so Alcoholics Anonymous became first choice, or it was second choice, which then became first choice. That's how we got a name for our book of experience, a name for our movement, as we are now beginning to see a tradition of the greatest spiritual import. And spiritual is living in reality for me, coping with what's happening now. Beginning with Bill's momentous decision in Akron to make a telephone call rather than a visit to the hotel bar, how often has a higher power made itself felt at crucial moments in our history? The eventual importance of that principle of anonymity would acquire was but dimly perceived at all in those early days. There seems to have been an element of chance, even in the choice of the name of our fellowship. God is no stranger to anonymity, and often appears in human affairs in the guises of luck, chance, and coincidence. If anonymity somewhat fortuitously became the spiritual basis for all our traditions, perhaps God was acting anonymously on our behalf. And that's not inconsistent with what I feel about fellowship and the traditions when it comes to being spiritual. I've come to understand that spiritual is the ability to cope with reality. So the traditions around the fellowship, coping with reality on a daily basis. And it gets no bigger or smaller than that. But when it comes to anonymity at the level of press, radio and films, which it talks about in that tradition, I find it contentious, because how do we find out how to keep sober if we're isolated and can't get to a meeting or can't get to fellowship meetings? And some would say if you're an addict in need of recovery, we ought to go to any lengths. But how do you know until you get there? It's very difficult to work out. So I'm just one voice of many voices, and AA is always about the combination of everyone who goes. What you see is what you get, rather than promotion, thinking you can be fixed, or I can be fixed by a notion of anonymity. It doesn't work that way. We need to live the program, 12 steps and 12 traditions. And what helps me most is the serenity prayer, which is to God of good conscience, as you come to understand. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is, for me, just for today.